let's jump right into one of the absolute most chilling, completely unsolved mysteries of the last 60 years. We're starting dead in the middle of a freezing, terrifying night. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a super close look at an event that has literally baffled scientists, investigators, and armchair detectives for decades. We're going to stick strictly to the documented facts to try and wrap our heads around a night that just totally defies conventional logic. I want you to really put yourself in this impossible scenario for a second. Imagine you're up on a desolate, snowy mountain. The cold is piercing right through your heavy gear, straight down to your bones. It's the dead of night, and then suddenly, panic sets in. A panic so deep, so completely overwhelming, that you actually destroy your only shelter. You literally tear your tent open from the inside out just to escape into the pitch-black darkness of a freezing forest. To really understand the sheer horror of that escape, you have to consider the temperature, minus 30 degrees. Running barefoot into minus 30-degree weather, that's a guaranteed death sentence. And these hikers absolutely knew that, which means whatever was inside that tent with them had to be far, far more terrifying than the absolute certainty of freezing to death. And that right there is the crux of our explainer today. This isn't some script for a Hollywood horror movie, folks. This is the legendary Dyatlov Pass Incident. It's a terrifying, true event from 1959 that remains completely 100% unsolved to this very day. So let's look at how this whole thing actually began.
Section 1. The Ill-Fated Expedition. Journey into the Urals.
Now, it's really important to note, this wasn't just some group of unprepared tourists. Led by a guy named Igor Dyatlov, these were 9 highly capable, highly experienced hikers. Their destination was Russia's remote Ural Mountains, and the goal? To conquer a really treacherous, snow-covered peak. And what's wild is that the early part of their journey went completely fine. They were happy, taking photographs, calmly writing in their diaries, just totally normal expedition stuff. But when we look at the timeline, a really chilling gap opens up. The expedition kicks off smoothly on January 23rd, but then, on the night of February 1st, something horrifying happens that literally alters history. The team just fails to return. The crucial takeaway here is that massive, devastating gap between the events of February 1st and the actual launch of the search and rescue operation on February 26th. For nearly an entire month, the fate of those 9 hikers was just left out there in the absolute unknown. Section 2. The Horrifying Discovery. Panic in the Snow. What the search team actually found up on that desolate mountain slope completely upends pretty much any standard true crime theory. Think about it. If a group is attacked in the wilderness, you'd expect to find a tent slashed from the outside, right? Like by an animal or an unknown attacker. But the reality? Searchers found the tent completely abandoned and slashed open from the inside. They weren't broken into, they were actively breaking out. They were literally running for their lives. And outside that shredded tent, the clues somehow get even more deeply unsettling. Picture the pure, intense desperation it takes to leave the kind of tracks the search party found. They saw footprints leading away from the campsite, plunging deep into the snow of the freezing forest. And those prints showed the hikers were fleeing wearing only socks, or in some cases running completely barefoot into the ice. Section 3. Baffling autopsy reports. Anomalies in the ice. So a little further into the forest, the first 2 bodies were found. But as the snow slowly melted over the next few months, the rest of the group was discovered. And guys, what the medical examiners found absolutely shocked the world. First off, the skeletal trauma. We're talking victims with ribs completely shattered. The official report actually noted it was as if they had been hit by a speeding truck. Then you have soft tissue loss. One female hiker was tragically discovered with her eyes and tongue missing. And finally, perhaps the most inexplicably bizarre detail of the whole shebang, the chemical anomaly. High levels of radioactive material were found on their clothing. The sheer force of those physical injuries, combined with the downright impossible presence of radiation, turns this from a tragic hiking accident into a massive scientific mystery. Section 4. Competing and bizarre theories. What actually happened? Naturally, with evidence this weird, public and private speculation ran absolutely wild. Some prominent theories suggest a highly classified military weapon test was happening up in those mountains, and the hikers just accidentally saw something they definitely weren't supposed to see. Others lean hard into folklore, believing it was a brutal attack by some sort of mythical snow beast, like a yeti. Some people even point to UFO sightings that were actually reported in the surrounding area around that same time. And then, rounding it out, we have the official Russian government conclusion, which simply stated the tragedy was caused by an avalanche. But here is the ultimate, enduring conflict of this entire mystery. The government basically closed the book by officially blaming an avalanche. But modern forensic experts and independent investigators, they flat out refuse to accept that explanation. And looking at the facts we've just laid out, you can totally understand why. I mean, an avalanche doesn't neatly explain ribs crushed with the force of a truck without any external bruising. It definitely doesn't explain a missing tongue, and it absolutely 100% does not account for clothing testing positive for high levels of radioactive material.
Section 5. An enduring unsolved mystery.
As one investigator perfectly summarized it, the true events of that dark night remained a chilling secret, forever buried in the snow with those 9 hikers. Despite all the intense forensic analysis and the endless theorizing we've explored today, the real truth of what forced those highly experienced hikers out into the lethal cold, well, it might never truly be unearthed. We've laid out all the chilling facts directly from the source material for you in this explainer. You've heard about the bizarre footprints, the impossible autopsy findings, and the totally contradictory theories. But I want to leave you with this one final thought. What do you believe actually happened out there in the snow? What forces an expert survivalist to run barefoot into the freezing dark? Think about the evidence we've unpacked here today. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible topic, and as always, keep asking the big questions.